Okay. So the question is, do drones have Kinects in front of them with those point clouds? And the answer is sort of yes. So one of the things that was funny was that Brendan, when we were looking at reference, he showed a video. You know, when you look at a Kinect with either infrared camera or night camera, you know, something, and you see all the dots that it's projecting, and then it's trying to get depth information out of that. And we kind of took that and ran with it. So that's one of the solutions that we've come up with. We've got an edge detection solution that we're going to start to work on pretty soon, but we're also trying to do this whole like point cloud thing. And so I'll show you guys, without further ado, some of the tests that I've been running with this stuff. And as you can kind of see, yeah, they're like, basically we're trying to make it look like there are a bunch of dots that the drone is projecting, and then, you know, objects are either occluding those, and then we get these really harsh shadows, or we can start to see some detail, and here I'm highlighting them in blue and stuff like that, in the environment, in those objects where we're detecting surfaces. And so it gives it this kind of, I think what we're ultimately trying to do is give it this sense that you're controlling this drone, and what you're looking at is like a data visualization. And not like just a camera feed necessarily, but we're trying to get, like I said last week, the best of both worlds, where you have this shaft of light with shadows, which gives you this very like alone in the dark kind of feel, and stuff like that, mixed with the whole data thing, so that you don't know exactly what you're looking at, and it's a little bit, and it feels very tech, and it feels very much like you are piloting a drone. So yeah. So these are various, this is some quick video that I took playing with some of the parameters from what Jeremy gave me, and just trying to figure out like how that would look. But yeah, so yeah, I like this one. This is the Sin City look. It's very Frank Miller, very harsh silhouettes with all of these vibes. So I don't know if there are little numbers up at the top. See how there's a number 1? I'll just let this scroll through a little bit, and you guys can kind of vote on what you guys think is really cool, or what your favorite look is. This is one approach that we're taking. We're not, you know, we're going to try a few others, but this one was, we were playing around, and this is one that we felt was starting to approximate something that might be cool. Keep in mind, of course, that like any effect or any visual reference or anything like that, this is the first layer. So this isn't how the game will end up looking. This has no noise to it. This doesn't have any, you know, a whole lot of models in there, or tiles and stuff like that that are adapted to make it look like it will. It also, I don't think it has like the, you know, all the video effects that we put on. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it's just kind of us playing around, and at the end of the day, the goal is to feel like you are controlling a drone that sees the world differently. That there's this layer between you and what you can see, and that technology is your only eyes and ears, and it also kind of gets in your way, and, you know, creates this sense of isolation. But then also to just make it look visually interesting, make it look like when you're exploring the ship, it's like, I really want a sense of what's that whole Rorschach thing of like, you know, I don't know exactly what I'm looking at, but I kind of think that that's a bunch of wires, maybe not, maybe that's like hair, I don't know. So that's kind of the objective. Again, I still have my cough, so I'm not going to go on too long about all this stuff, but I thought I'd show you guys some progress. I also have, cool, thank you. Yeah, it's, it seems like a good start. It seems like it's getting more toward something that feels more data-driven than what we had before, which felt like it was very video-driven. So I'll go ahead and show you guys. Let's see what else we got. Oh, so this is something kind of fun. We're also playing around with stale data. So you guys mentioned this last week on the stream. Let me resize this a little bit. So I thought that maybe I would make this a little bigger. Right. Okay. So as you can see here, the data that's behind him. So as you move the camera, some of the data stays around behind the drone, even though he's not pointing his scanner at it. And the idea is that that data is growing stale. It's like the computer still knows that that data exists. So there's like this ghosting effect. And so a lot of people said that it would be really cool if you went into a room and you were looking around it and it would still show a representation of that, but that data would show that it was getting stale. And so that's essentially what this is doing. This is basically anything that's dimmer, that's not bright, is not currently being scanned. And then the idea here, in my mind, is that the drone only has so big of a buffer to conceptualize the world. And so as it scans new things, the old data has to be cleared from memory to make room for the new data. And so there's this kind of ghosting effect. And of course, if there was an enemy in the ghost area, you wouldn't end up seeing it because you're not scanning it, but you know where the environment is. And a little reticle might come up because you might know that there's an enemy there, but you wouldn't know which enemy because until you point the light at it, sort of. So this is another way that we can kind of play around with things. And this is really interesting because as you drive, one of the things that we've lost is we used to have some splash because it used to be a video effect, and so there used to be some splash of light behind the drone, so you could still see a little bit on the periphery of you. And so this gives that kind of vibe as you drive around, a little bit of stuff behind you. But then it creeps up behind you when you stop, which is really interesting. Yeah, we'd love to hear any ideas, and whenever I post videos on YouTube or even here in the comments, yeah, understand that we've got a long way to go and that this is just very, very early, but any ideas, I'm all ears because, you know, someone was talking about, we had already been talking about this stale data thing, but when we heard people commenting on the YouTube video, and even in the Twitch feed, I think, it just reinforces to us that, yes, that's something that's worthwhile that we should be pursuing. So if you got any ideas, go ahead and spout them out. Let's see what else we got. We started playing around with some noise. This is pretty subtle. This noise is very subtle. Let me show you. This is me going kind of crazy by playing with a lot of parameters on the noise. But it's too obvious right here. I'm basically breaking the effect by making it just way too noisy. And not only that, but it becomes clear that the noise is sort of sitting on top of everything. And so it's not as... it's obviously like sort of this post effect, and we don't want that. We want it to be effect that's inherent in the data. We don't want it to look like we're getting even like noise on top of the data. We want it to make it look like the data itself is noisy, if that makes sense. So I think that Jeremy just he just delivered this. See if I can get to a point that shows it a little bit. Right, so now obviously this is static. This noise isn't moving, but it looks more inherent like in the data itself, which is kind of what I want. I kind of want it to look, and this is a simple noise pass, but I'm kind of trying to make it look like, and you can see him kind of playing with it here, as a static thing. But we kind of want it to look like that data itself is noisy. And we want to make it look like we're trying to figure out where the edges of this object are, and we're not entirely sure. And so it's kind of amorphous, and it's kind of changing as you move the camera around. It might stay still as the camera's pointing. It still might move a little bit, but then as you move the camera, it would update quite a bit. And that's the idea. And so it might be that we have blobs that we put down on these things as that original look was, or it might be that we continue with these dots, or we do like lines with the outline. We're not entirely sure. But let me see. He also had this, which is just kind of showing different areas that we're kind of doing a height thing where we're trying to differentiate between different heights of the area or of the objects, so that we can do we were doing some banding, some color banding, so that like things lower and higher were broken into these little buckets. But yeah, so that's the idea.